Hi, my name is Dr. Amy Curtis. I'm joining you today from Seattle, Washington, and I'm so grateful to be asked to speak about my experiences and what I do now. I've got some things to cover in this short video. I'm going to talk a little bit about my story, my profession, and then I'm going to talk a little about working with neuroplasticity and building resiliency in the nervous system. But first, I want to give a trigger warning. I'm going to talk briefly about losing my husband and cancer, and if that's not something you're in a place to hear right now, please do take a moment and take care of yourself or turn this off. So let's start with my story. I was 26 when my husband was diagnosed with terminal cancer. We spent 2 painful but love-filled years fighting for our time together. And 7 years ago, at the age of 31, he passed away. And I was a 28-year-old widow with all of my dreams, my plans, my life partner gone. As you know, it was a dark time. I had stopped working and going to school so that I could care for him, and he was really sick for most of that time. We didn't get to have any children. I had no career. I had no purpose left on this earth. My entire life for 2 years was about him, his illness, his suffering, my suffering. And in those early days, I knew I had to find anchors. I had to find handrails to keep me from floating off into the abyss. And I did. I held on to dear friends and family. I found a widow mentor. And through Modern Widows Club, I found a group of women who could actually see me and know my pain. And the most important thing I got from that experience was to see that they were still here and many doing well. They were alive and living a life after loss. My nervous system, my heart, my soul needed to see that. I needed the confirmation that I, in fact, had a future. I wasn't quite sure what the future was yet. And my experience trying to care for my husband in the medical system left me with a little bit of a bad taste for conventional medicine. I knew I wanted to be able to practice medicine in a way that really promoted comprehensive health. So roughly 7 months after losing my husband, I drove across the country, moved to Seattle, spent the next year getting my remaining prereqs, and then I started 4 years of naturopathic medical school. It was not easy. I still felt very broken. And at the time, I used that terminology because I didn't have adequate language to describe my experience. I was constantly working through my grief. I did not do medical school perfectly, but I did it. I did it because I knew I needed a purpose. I had a calling, and I was blessed with my husband's GI Bill. He passed on that gift, and I took it and turned it into a continuation of his legacy. He lives on through my work, which allows me to serve others. My building a new life for myself and living a full and meaningful life is how I honor him every day. Now, a little bit about my profession. So you kind of understand the perspective that I'm coming from. I'm a naturopathic physician, which means I practice medicine from a different perspective than an allopathic doctor or even a functional medicine doctor. I'm a licensed physician and I practice individualized medicine. There are sort of 6 grounding principles of our medicine. First, do no harm, trust in the healing power of nature, treat the cause, treat the whole person, doctor as teacher, and encourage and nurture prevention. I received similar training as an MD in the ways of learning standard of care based on Western medicine practices, but I also received evidence-based training in herbal medicine, nutrient therapies, lifestyle modification, and a variety of other modalities that are sometimes termed alternative, which is a little bit of a misnomer in that it sometimes assumes an inferior status, but really it just speaks to the idea that it's another option outside of the one-size-fits-all model. It honors individuality. And I practice from a holistic approach, which takes into consideration the complex ecosystem that we call health. And we treat based on a individual's needs and the root cause for their particular presentation. Our hope is not just to manage disease, but to nurture health and wellness. And perhaps my most treasured principle is doctor as teacher, or docere. A proven predictor of wellness is your perceived autonomy over your life. Teaching is medicine in its own right. Educating a person about their bodies and wellness serves to empower that person, and it brings more autonomy into their life. Now, to get into the topic of neuroplasticity, first I want to establish a few things. One, severe mental health disorders should absolutely be treated to the full extent to which it is necessary for anyone to feel safe. The information I'm sharing doesn't replace any medical treatment or serve as medical advice. What I hope to share with you is perspective and tools that can be explored and used in the context of your overall wellness. And second, I want to acknowledge stages and phases, or what I'll refer to as seasons. I want to honor the fact that throughout different points in our life and within the experience of grief, we have different needs that change over time. There are times to numb, times to check out, or times to do the deep inner work. There are times that you need that pharmaceutical to get through a critical point. And there's times to start making changes to your habits and lifestyles that might be deemed healthier. But I want to make it clear that wherever you find yourself in the spectrum, you're always doing the best you can to support your wellness. All your efforts are valid. There is no judgment around what it takes to get through trauma. Judgment serves no purpose in healing. The trick is to let go of the criticisms and just recognize that there are things that you'd like to change in order to feel your best. So if it's possible to recognize the thinking of, I have to stop doing this bad thing, I'm such a fill in the blank, and know that, oh, okay, that thought is trying to tell me it's time to change seasons. But it's important to leave behind the criticism of how you coped with the previous season. My first year of widowhood did not look the same as my second, which did not look the same as the third, and so forth. I was not ready to hear certain things 2 months out, but I needed them 2 years out. And it was not always pretty. You probably know what I'm talking about, and I bring this up because I see the same thing happens when we think we need to do everything at once, but we don't. The process of growing and healing is an evolving process. And each experience, each lesson, each mistake has a purpose and builds upon itself, and you have to honor that process. Whatever season you're in, you decide what you need at that point, and you leave the rest. It's either not for you or it's not for you right now. And that goes for anything I say in this video. Okay. There's simply not enough time for me to take a deep dive into this topic. And because everyone has different contributing factors to their physical and mental health, what I'm going to focus on is neuroplasticity, because this work is for everyone. And I'll spare you the anatomy lecture, but what I do want you to know is you have parts of your brain that are working behind the scenes, processes that you're not consciously aware of. And your limbic system is a network of regions in the brain that is logging your emotional experiences. And in conjunction with your thinking brain, it's assigning meaning to those experiences. And this process is vitally important to our survival, our ability to live in relation to others, to sense and respond to danger in our environments. Sometimes when we experience trauma, and perhaps due to the nature of our too fast-paced culture, that system can become a runaway train, and we get stuck in trauma loops that continually signal to our brain that we are in danger. Without providing inputs into the system that signal safety, the trauma response continues to build upon itself, requiring less and less to set it off. And when your brain receives signals of danger and responds with its learned patterns, you're automatically put into a mode of high alert, defensiveness, being on guard, being anxious. You might experience emotions and memories of past traumas. You're in survival mode. And that mode certainly serves its purpose in times of danger and loss. But while your brain is on that setting, there isn't space for growth, healing, creativity, joy. And physiologically, we also know that survival mode for the brain is not healthy over a sustained period of time. That's sometimes called chronic stress. and chronic traumatic stress. And we actually see evidence of shrinking in certain regions of the brain under those circumstances. What the brain needs in order to turn that mode off or to turn it down or transition into a healthy mode of growth and healing is safety signals. It needs to learn the pattern of safety. And that's where neuroplasticity comes in. Bet you were wondering where that fits in. When you do the nervous system work, you are promoting neuroplasticity, the process of building new connections and patterns within the nervous system. You're upgrading capacity to handle stress or anxiety, capacity to judiciously use survival mode for survival, and also have access to patterns of growth and healing. That's a resilient nervous system. Now, I'm going to provide you with a sort of a context and a jumping off point because I have 20 minutes of your time, but I want to explain a two-part process to get you started. So first, we want to stop triggering the trauma response as much as possible. We do that through language. Language is one way we orient to stress, how we assign meaning to our experiences, and it's incredibly powerful. It's tied to our core beliefs about ourselves. It's the way our brains tell us stories about who we are and how to interpret life. It's also how we inadvertently constantly trigger our trauma patterns. So an example in my own life, throughout medical school, especially in the beginning, I would constantly be thinking, I am so broken. And that thought would quickly shut me down. It was not inspiring or helpful in hard times. And I wasn't broken. I was becoming. I was processing and healing. I was often in the throes of grief or self-doubt, and that's called being human. I had a variety of other self-limiting, re-traumatizing vocabulary that I used with myself that I had to slowly work through dismantling. And still, when I catch a self-limiting thought or a re-traumatizing thought or phrase that I might use with myself, my practice remains to ask myself, is this true? Or are there truer words to describe my experience? Ones that don't signal danger to my nervous system. Now let me be clear. This is not a call to unbridled and manufactured positivity. This is a call to examine how your language and thought patterns are signaling danger to your limbic system. How might you learn a new language that is still true to you, but also provides safety signals for your brain? Practicing removing judgment, practicing forgiveness, remembering that judgment has no place in healing. So a few ways to accomplish this might be through psychotherapy or talk therapy. And personally, I have found a lot of success with talk therapy over many years of my life. And if it's accessible to you, I encourage you to explore the different types of therapy that are available. For instance, most recently, I've been working with a therapist that blends traditional psychotherapy with internal family systems therapy, which is sometimes referred to as parts work. And that has opened up a new way of understanding myself. There's a wide variety of approaches. Again, find what works for you. But maybe that's not where you're at in the process. Perhaps you have a group of women that are willing to do a study group where you explore ideas and experiences together. This can be a self-exploration. There are hundreds of books and online resources, TED Talks or podcasts. And if you already have a high level of self-awareness, this might be possible for you. So step one, evaluate your language and work to find a new one that doesn't keep triggering your trauma loops. Second step, develop a practice. The practice is what trains the brain. It's what installs new wiring, new capacity in the system. Again, this is individual. You have to find what works for you, but you're looking for some form of mind-body medicine. Options include Breathwork. This is a powerful method to access regulation to your nervous system. Mindfulness practices, biofeedback, which uses different technologies that sort of provides you data on a variety of um, heart rate variability or how you're breathing. And you look at this data while you're performing different mind-body modalities like breath work or guided meditation. And you can work with biofeedback to increase heart rate variability, which again is another indicator of general wellness. And there are consumer products like M-Wave, or you can work with a practitioner trained in biofeedback. Progressive muscle relaxation is another option, autogenics training. And then there's meditation in all forms, guided or unguided, mindfulness meditation, visualization, loving kindness meditation. It's common to combine breath work with meditation. There's walking meditations. I could go on. To share my own experience with this, as I learned different practices in school, I would often take just 5 minutes out of my day to sit quietly and meditate on gratitude. And believe me, as a grieving widow in the pressure cooker of medical school, gratitude was not always easy to come by, but I used it to ground myself. And so even on my worst days, I would simply repeat an easy anchor like, I'm so grateful for the love we shared and the opportunity he has provided me. I was going to school on his GI Bill. And so my recommendation for you is to learn about different techniques. Try them out, see what fits for you. Personally, this continues to be a work in progress for me. I use breath work and meditation. Sometimes I like to do a progressive muscle relaxation before bed. If I'm feeling particularly tense in my body, the research shows that a daily practice is what's most beneficial to the nervous system, but you can work up to this. Don't forget it's a process. It's not perfect. And sometimes having an accountability buddy can be helpful. And the practice itself is what installs greater capacity. Then once you've put in some time with the practice, what we call integration happens. It becomes a resource that you tap into in times of overwhelm or stress. You can take a moment and you can drop into that regulated pattern and it grounds you. It helps you cope with the moment with a little less suffering. So in summary, we can use our supremely intelligent nervous system to change our physiology, our experience of the world, our suffering. Through conscious awareness of our thoughts, feelings, and language, and doing the nervous system training, we act on the brain to change its structure and function, and we build a resilient system. Hope you find this helpful, and I've provided some resources that I've mentioned in this video.